Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week I predicted that number 1 would be Dog Man, number 2 would be Companion, number 3 would be Flight Risk, number 4 would be Mufasa the Lion King, and number 5 would be One of Them Days. And I only got 2 out of 5 of my predictions right for this week, and it was the 2 new releases. In other words, it was the easiest ones. I was not, I guess, predicting the shift to happen so quickly here with these other movies, but a lot of you actually did, so congratulations to everyone who was smarter than me for predicting that, yeah, Mel Gibson, Mark Wahlberg Flight Risk is not going to have great staying power. Obviously, you are much smarter than I. Obviously, we'll talk about Flight Risk in a bit, but first let's just dive into what happened in the overall top 10, starting with number 1. It should come to no surprise that Dog Man is number 1 this week, and not only is it a new DreamWorks film, a new animated family film, but it's also based off of a very popular Dave Pilkey graphic novel, young adult graphic novel kind of series, akin to Captain Underpants, which he also worked on, and DreamWorks also made a movie of. Interesting. They love working with that guy, I guess. This movie made $36 million for its opening weekend. Now, worldwide, it's only bumped up to $40 million, so it's a pretty solid domestic opening as far as the worldwide numbers go. Not particularly. Obviously, I think we'll be seeing it increase a bit more. You might be wondering, well, what kind of position is it in right now as far as its financial status, its break-even point? Well, its worldwide opening right now is standing at $40 million, and its initial production budget, $40 million. So they only need to make about $40 million more for our show's standards of the, doubling point is more than likely when you break even. And they're already in the clear. So the fact that they're already kind of halfway there, they're at the initial production point. Now they just need to make a lot more than that. This is actually a pretty great start, actually, when you factor that in. I'm sure, we're thinking of like Moana 2 or Inside Out 2 as far as like animated, like big animated openings. But this is actually pretty good, especially for the budget. I really hope there's no news stories about, crunching animators, but I mean, I guess we'll see, you know what I mean? Nothing can be fucking sacred anymore, am I right, fellas? Even as far as opening weekends, looking at DreamWorks, there's too many DreamWorks animated films to go through. Like, this one had an opening weekend higher than blah 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 blah. It just lists like 20 fucking movies. You know what I mean? Not exactly 20, but it's a lot. But it did have an opening weekend like kind of smack dab in the middle, similar to what came out a couple months ago, The Wild Robot. In fact, this opening weekend right now domestically is 1 million over The Wild Robots and 2 million below B Movie. So yeah, I don't know if it'll have the same kind of staying power as The Wild Robot. I think The Wild Robot really connected with a lot of people, more so than just like it was entertaining for the families in the moment. Like, it was something that really crossed over, and a lot of adults couldn't stop praising it as well. Obviously it didn't make the money that an Inside Out 2 or Moana 2 did, but The Wild Robot had people talking, and that was good. Landed itself a animated feature nomination and maybe even a win. We'll see. It's definitely as far as what's gonna win that category, I think people are saying either Wild Robot or Flow. No one is saying Inside Out 2 and that made $1 billion. It just goes to show you. And do I think Dog Man is kind of in that same category? Not particularly. This one is kind of designed to be a bit more families can see this, and I think some adults can enjoy it. I thought it was cute, but I think kids, in particular fans of the kids graphic novel books, they will really love this. But I don't know if that'll necessarily translate into having this, Wild Robot-esque kind of staying power as the weeks go by, but it's sure enough going to make quite a bit for its budget. So I do think it is a solid start for it, and I am curious to see where it continues to go. As far as DreamWorks Animation's domestic runs right now, it has outgrossed Ruby Gillman by 21 million, Spirit Untamed by 19 million, and Sinbad by 10 million. It needs 14 million until it gets to El Dorado. Worldwide, like we mentioned, those worldwide numbers are not strong enough yet, so it's still right now at the very bottom of the list, needing 2 million until it outgrosses Spirit Untamed. But like I've been saying, a pretty decent opening for an animated film domestically for DreamWorks, kind of smack dab in the middle, not a horrible place to be. And the fact that its production budget was so low and the movie looks as good as it is, and I think the cinema score is pretty high. Like, it seems to be hitting the right mark, so I think we're in a good spot for it to continue to do well, at least until Captain America comes and makes a lot of money in 2 weeks, but there's next week to think about, so we'll catch up with Dogman then. Number 2 was Companion, and I'm so glad this movie actually did, get to number 2, and my prediction was right, because there was a part of me that was like, maybe this is just another example of me thinking that a movie that I'm aware of, is crossed over into a more mainstream appeal, and maybe it only opens out of the top 5. No, it got to number 2, and it made $9.5 million. So, worldwide it is sitting at $15 million, and that's only $5 million shy of doubling its initial production budget of $10 million. So there you go, an original film that was kind of marketed, or at least the teaser trailer that was shown more so than the main trailer that kind of spoils the main twist at the end of Act 1. But the teaser, maybe was just marketed vague enough where some people were like, this looks kind of nutty. What is this? Producers, the unhinged creators of Barbarian. Oh my gosh, what is this? So, that's pretty cool. The fact that it's also $5 million shy of doubling this budget, this top 2, like these 2 films, as far as like lower budgeted films, they've found a really great groove with the audience that they have marketed to. They came out at just the right time where they can really benefit. And I'm just happy to see this. I'm hoping for more of it. You know what I mean? Hoping for more, successes based off of just, using your resources well as far as like your budgeting. So that's really cool to see. Just banking on, in the sense of Companion, really just banking on an original idea too. That's really fun. Let's move on to something that's not as fun. Number 3, Mufasa the Lion King. Yes, it is still fucking here, making $6.1 million, adding to a domestic total of $229 million. That's $314 million away from the 2019 remake, by the way. Worldwide, it is sitting at $653 million, so that is $1.008 billion away from the 2019 one. So it's still about $1 billion away from the overall worldwide total. That's yeah, like we've been saying, yes, it's broken even as far as like this movie's contained budget, but if you do compare it to the whopper of a hit that was the 2019 remake for whatever reason, and we know it's just because of nostalgia, right? Obviously, yeah, that is such a big downgrade, still being like $1 billion away from what the 2019 one made. Like, yeah, that's crazy, right? I think this one, it's held over well enough. I think it's going to start to dip a bit, not just because Dogman is out this weekend, and I don't think it has much family competition, next time, but Paddington in Peru is right around the corner as well. In fact, is it coming out the same weekend as Captain America? So is it? Yeah, is that how that lines up? So yeah, I don't think Mufasa is going to continue to like hold over as well because you got family competition with Dogman and then these other 2 movies. But it's had its run, and that's okay. Sure, whatever. I have nothing else to talk about. Let's move on to number 4, which is One of Them Days. Yay, a good one, making $6.0 million, adding to a domestic total of $34 million. So they have doubled their $14 million initial production budget we talked about last week, and it was only a couple million shy from doing so. Now they need to get to $42 million to triple it, so that's only about $8 million more. So they've been having a really great couple of weekends, and even though it didn't get to number 1 despite it looking like it would when I made the video when it came out, it still had a pretty solid, impressive, commendable run. Once again, another lower budgeted film with just a studio banking on just an original film, not based on any pre-existing IP, and just really relying on the talents that you have to turn a hit. And look at what we got here. This, you got your Companion as well. Good stuff, just good stuff. I don't really have much more to add other than that's cool, and it's way better than number 5, how Flight Risk is doing. Jesus Christ. This one did not hold over very well, having about a 50% drop, and it's not like it had like a great opening. It made $5.6 million this weekend, which now adds to a domestic total of $20 million, and worldwide it's only bumped up to 25. So they have crossed over the initial production budget of $25 million, so there's that. But our show standards, you got to double it. Do they have the momentum to do so? I would say after debuting at number 1 and then dropping to number 5, no, definitely not. Are you kidding? Yeah, I think it's just going to continue to drop. I just, like I was kind of saying, I think in Box Office Talk, but I think also in my video, like, it was kind of hard to tell how my audience was kind of feeling about it, but I feel like the whole movie just kind of gives this sense of like, man, that's it. You know what I mean? Like, you got all these people involved that have done good work before, despite any criticisms that have come from their public personas, and this is what they made. I think the cinema score actually is like a C plus or something like that. Like it's lower, and yeah, I think that's really well translated as far as like how I think people are viewing this movie, which is just not good enough. Sorry, Mr. Ambassador. As far as his films domestically, it is 4 million away from outgrossing Man Without a Face. The fact that a modern Mel Gibson movie hasn't done that yet is pretty embarrassing. I will give him that. And then worldwide, it did outgross A Man Without a Face there by 1 million, but now it's behind Apocalypto by 96 million, and there's just no way that's gonna happen. So this one's just a fucking, dead fish floating in the middle of the ocean. Anyways, number 6 is Sonic the Hedgehog 3, making 3.2 million, adding to a domestic total of 230 million. That places the distance between this and Mario by 344 million. Worldwide, it is sitting at $462 million, about 26 million more, and then they quadruple that 122 million production budget, the initial production budget. I think it's slowed down enough where I'm not sure if it can crack that, or at the very least if it will while it's still in the top 10, but hey, that's pretty solid though, nonetheless. Now, worldwide, as far as like all-time video game runs, it is distanced from the Mario movie by 897 million, ending your run being the top 2 highest grossing video game adaptation of all time. That it doesn't matter if you don't get to the $1 billion Mario movie at that point, you're still number 2, you're still some other movie's competition. You're still going to be Sonic 4's competition, you know what I mean? And that's just pretty cool. I think we've talked enough about how it's been cool seeing this franchise kind of grow and get better as far as like connecting with its audience, and it's just cool to see this. Number 7 is Moana 2, something that isn't very cool. I feel like we've been going back and forth with these movies, like we'll get a cool one and then a not a cool one. Anyways, it made 2.8 million, adding to a domestic total of 453 million. Still, we're going to go over all these stats obviously, but no progress as far as like moving up. It is behind Frozen 2 still, this time by 24 million, and then for the year 2024 it is behind Wicked by 17 million. The fact that Wicked is no longer in the top 10, Moana 2 is still here, it's technically making more money on the weekends, and Wicked is premium video on demand right now, but the fact that Wicked still has a pretty significant lead, I think that just goes to show you, at least domestically, where we're kind of at with it. Worldwide, it is sitting at 1.036 billion, so as far as Disney animation, it is 235 million away from Frozen, not going to get there before it leaves the top 10, and then for the year 2024, 302 million away from Deadpool and Wolverine, not going to get there, but it's the top 3 highest grossing film for Disney animation worldwide and for the year 2024. So it's a hit. It doesn't need to outgross any of these other movies. It doesn't need any more accomplishments like this. It's already made its money. Who cares? Number 8 is A Complete Unknown. I was curious about this one because last weekend was the first weekend of getting a few more worldwide totals in, and I was wondering if it would keep adding up. I think there were some reports that it was like the number 1 movie in like Ireland or someplace like that for like 2 weeks in a row or something like that. It's only bumped up a little bit, so it made 2.1 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of 66 million. For Mangold, that places it 10 million away from outgrossing Night and Day, and then worldwide it is bumped up to 87 million, so not huge enough, especially after getting the Oscar nominations. Like domestically, it's still not really getting more people in based off of that, and even worldwide it's not really translating, having not just Timothée Chalamet nominated, but even Monica Barbaro or James Mangold, or having the movie itself be nominated for Best Picture. And Edward Norton, I think, is also nominated, if I'm remembering correctly. So yeah, none of these things have necessarily translated into higher ticket sales, or at least getting into a point where that 50 to 70 million projected production budget doesn't look so bad. But it's going to be worth it for the awards love alone, and years later people will still be looking into it probably, so I'm sure they're all good. For Mangold, worldwide, it did outgross Identity by 5 million, but now it's got a steep climb of needing 100 million in order to get to Walk the Line, his other musician biopic film. Probably not going to get there. Sorry. Number 9 is The Brutalist, making 1.8 million, adding to a domestic total of 12.1. Worldwide, it is sitting at 18.2, and that's 1.8 million away from doubling its initial production budget, reported budget of 10 million. We all know how they've been saying, it only costs 10 million to make this thing. How is that possible? Obviously, they are reaping the rewards here because they're, only a couple mil shy from doubling that, getting to a point that's pretty special. Like, obviously, the fact that it is 3.5 hours long and it's currently only in theaters, I'm sure that is daunting to some people, but the fact that some people are still curious enough to want to go see that, and it's budgeted low enough where that can benefit them later. I don't really have anything else to say about The Brutalist, so let's just end with number 10, which is Den of Thieves 2 Pantera, because this one actually got a bit of news. So it made 1.6 million, which now adds to a domestic total of 34 million, so that's 10 million away from the original film's run. Worldwide, it is sitting at 49. I feel like that's a little bit more of a bump than we saw last time, placing it 31 million away from the original, but more importantly, about 31 million, oh yeah, exactly, 31 million away from doubling its initial production budget of 40 million. So for our show standards, this is not really in the clear. But there was news recently of developing Den of Thieves 3, like it's happening. They're thinking about it. It's in the works, despite the fact that, our show standards would say like, well, you need to double the initial production budget to do so, to be in the clear, to show that this is making money. But I guess 49 mil, I guess they're all good. Once again, we have these rules as far as like just, when we talk about this stuff, we can always fall back on it if we don't have anything specific. But it can always change. You know what I mean? Who knows how this fucking Hollywood accounting works? They're always hiding numbers, or they're willing to have them shown for everyone to see. It's a madhouse. So I was just surprised by that, because we've been talking about how like, man, it's not really catching on. It seems like it just doesn't seem like, they're going to be able to want to make more of these because it doesn't seem like it's as profitable, but obviously it's profitable to someone. Now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's top 5. Number 1, I am going with Dogman once again. I think it'll hold over solidly. Number 2, I think will be Heart Eyes. It's coming out at a good time, Valentine's Day themed, and it's a horror movie, so I think it'll get some people in. Number 3, Love Hurts. Number 4, Companion. And number 5, Mufasa the Lion King. But what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.